What do you do if you played all those games? You take a step back, cause you haven't, and here's few that you hopefully never heard of. Astrocounter of the Crescents is a side-view horizontally scrolling sci-fi anime-style action game, and another of those Korean hidden gems that saw a very limited release in the West. Mainly through singular imports, as it is reported that only over 5,000 copies of the game were printed, and many of these were recalled later on because of the joke that one of the devs left in the game and forgot to remove before the release. The game is set in the 2095 during the War for Earth. Two factions fight for control of it and its orbit: Space World Community and Earth Liberation Front, both sounding like opposing ends of the same extremist stick. Astrocounter is rather story-heavy, with plenty of dialogues between the characters, and as much as I'd like to give you a background of sorts in regard to what it's all about and what they're saying in all these cutscenes, I can't. But since you're a singular hero, going from left to right through most levels, defeating hundreds upon hundreds of enemies, mainly in melee combat, I think the story may go something like that. Once again, the conflict between two opposing forces brought Earth to the brink of destruction. You're working for one of the factions, against another. It doesn't take long, however, for you to realize that all is not what it seems, and that both of them are utterly evil. So you take it upon yourself to defeat them both and save the planet in the process. I may be wrong, but it's a generic action story mishmash, so it should fit nicely. Anyway, the levels are rather simple designed and for the most part require you to literally go from left to right and defeat anything that stands in your way. Your mech has few different attacks and they're not too difficult to pull off. That said, the game is extremely challenging, so I suppose that I could risk calling it a Souls-like of action titles of yesteryear. A mouthful perhaps, but the sentiment stands. Graphics and sounds are excellent and make the game really enjoyable to progress in, despite the difficulty even. So if you like either side-view action games or Souls-like, Astrocounter is definitely something worth tracking down. Astrofire is a top-down fixed-screen arcade shooter and another take on a classic Asteroids formula, with few small touches that make it different than the original is. But is it different enough to warrant a completely new game? I think you'll be able to answer it for yourself when we're done talking about it. It was released as shareware, split into 3 chapters of Into the Storm, Whirlpool of Death and Heart of Fire, all sounding like really cool titles for 1980s action movies and not chapters in a random game. Preferably with a lone protagonist who against all odds defeats the overwhelming armies of evil, saving a girl and universe in the process, kinda like you tend to do in other games. Anyway, only the first of 3 chapters was available in the shareware version, the remaining 2 required a purchase. The main difference between Astrofire and Arcade Classic was that it offered power-ups in the form of 2 new and stronger weapons and a shield, which effectively negated the one-hit kill mechanic of Asteroids, making Astrofire less demanding. Additionally, if you're someone who didn't like the momentum mechanics in the original or just wants a bit easier game, then it too can be toggled in the settings. The 3 episodes differ in the backgrounds and the enemy sprites, but other than that, they all play identical. Now, if you're an avid fan of Asteroids, I can pretty much guarantee that you'll love Astrofire. It's great looking, and while it sounds terrible, the playability of the original is definitely still intact, albeit a bit easier than you remember. But if you're not keen on the gameplay formula, then there's not enough new here to warrant tracking it down, as it's just the original in new tad flashier clothing. Avalon is an old-school style top-down view turn-based JRPG that, funny enough, did not come from Japan. The Earth is destroyed. Was it us, or our mismanagement of climate and resources, or some kind of a cataclysm? It's irrelevant. What is important is that some of us, followers of so-called Avalon cult, managed to escape to a distant Earth-like planet of Avalon. When you start the game, some time has passed already and the colony is prosperous. Perhaps it's not the biggest or most advanced one, but it's safe and working. Colonists have grown accustomed to living on a new planet and future of humanity seems to be secured. That is, until the day that one of the villages was attacked by the hundreds of strange-looking and unknown-to-us creatures. What's worse, the leader of the village, Lee, was captured by him as he was hoping to negotiate some kind of a peaceful solution to this rather aggressive situation. You play as Mace, yes, like the one in Spray used against attackers, and you hope to help the inhabitants of your village and all colonists alike to continue thriving on the Avalon. The game is your typical single-player JRPG where you explore the map, visit towns, battle enemies random and otherwise, gather information from and talk to NPCs, purchase and sell items, fulfill quests and solve occasional puzzles. Sadly, you don't get to have anyone join your party, but other than that, it's a pretty standard fare. The battles are quite strategic and not built to be unforgivingly unfair, and overall, despite of its genre, simple presentation and being much less grindy than your typical JRPGs, Avalon feels very Western. While it may not be the biggest or best RPG out there, and definitely not for the year it released in, it's a very competent and decently playing title with an unparalleled quality to price ratio. And all because it's a freeware. So even small nuisances like inability to pick up or interact with certain objects until you get the quest that they're a part of can be forgiven. As at the price of exactly $0, they're easy to ignore. Central Intelligence is one of the most unique games I've covered in the series to date. It's a political espionage-themed strategy with gameplay best described as a mixture of Shadow President and Midwinter. And it's still a bit different than what you think it is after hearing me mention the two. You play as a CIA chief sent to Chinese-supported dictatorship island of Sao Madrigal, where your goal is to find a way to organize the recuperation of democracy. So, you will be closely working with the previous leader of the nation, trying to arrange a counter-revolution to remove the current president from position of power. You have a wide range of various actions that you can take to make that happen, and they more or less fall into the two categories of propaganda and political orders. Decisions on your next steps and suitable approach should be based on the political climate, how the conditions in the country are developing at particular time, and also on the support of democratic party is holding at the moment. As even if your actions are successful, keeping democratic leadership will be impossible without appropriate citizen support. The actions that you take are not direct, but rather you recruit spies and allocate them in various strategic locations across the island, issuing orders to them Emperor Palpatine style, so delegating most onto your network of subordinates. You know, let them take the hit if something goes wrong. I know I said that there's two ways of working towards your goal, political or through propaganda, but in reality there's a third one too. And it's based in military actions. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why bother with diplomacy when we can just overwhelm the nation and install our own puppet in a sweep 1-2-3 move with a bit of planes, couple of bombs and a tank or two? Well, the government like that would never halt, and military actions should really only be used as a last resort. It's worth pointing out that while all I said may sound interesting and no doubt like something you'd like to try, but if you're looking for a game with action, this isn't it. Central Intelligence, for the most part, is just a series of static screens on which you make small changes, issue orders and observe the results. And by observe, I actually mean read about them. But if you have a vivid imagination and don't mind a rather basic presentation and on top of that are interested in either politics or espionage, then there's quite a fun game here for you to tackle. Chewy Escape from F5 is a point-and-click adventure game. Chewy, a titular protagonist, is who you're in control of, and he's out to achieve twofold when you start the game up. Rescue his friend from the evil Borgs who kidnapped him, and steal a powerful so-called red glump from their high-security zone called F5, so that they couldn't use it in their evil plans. And with a name like Borgs, which is neither dorks nor Borgs, I have no doubt that the plans must be nefarious. In the process of doing so, Chewy's friend Clint manages to get his paws on the red glump and escapes with it using one of Borgs' spaceships. On a side note, to me, red glump sounds like a disease that would require a visit to a urologist and not a cornerstone of an evil scheme, but whatever. The ship gets caught in a wormhole and moved thousands of light years away, where it crash lands on an alien planet called Earth. And this is where you take control of Chewy and the game truly begins. On the first glance, both gameplay and presentation-wise, Chewy looks a lot like LucasArts' Day of the Tentacle. And truth be told, it's actually not that far off. Naturally, it never reaches the quality of the classic, but it's an excellent little-known German title nonetheless. Most puzzles are inventory-based, and the humor and funny situations come most of the time from interactions of your inventory objects with the outside world and characters, kinda like in the aforementioned Masterpiece. The story, while may not be as crazy and over the top, is also pretty fun and will no doubt keep you interested all the way to the end. Graphics and sounds are both excellent, maybe short of voiceovers, but you can't win them all, can you? And the music is well-fitting and of high quality, so there's that. Truth be told, I've never completed Chewy and only maybe played it for an hour or so years ago, but it left a positive impression, and what I found about it online seems to support the sentiment. So while I can't straight up recommend it given how little I really know about it, all I'll say is that it looks like it's worth tracking down and playing if you're into adventure games at all. Blackstar Agent of Justice is a shareware 2-episode strong first-person perspective adventure game. You play as titular Blackstar, a private detective of Native American origin. The game starts quietly with a typical day in your life, but very soon jumps into a first case of a gruesome murder and intertwined with its sinister plot and also what's to come next after. And as adventure games go, this one's chock full of 20th century stereotypes and cheap nudity which seems to be forcefully added in anywhere it could theoretically be stuck in, pun intended. It's not an issue, just an observation. All that provided you have a paid full version, as all the raunchy scenes are paywalled with a purchase. That said, they are entirely unnecessary and add nothing to the not-so-great story that the game follows, so probably having a go at the shareware version will be enough for you to gauge if the game's worth your time, and come to a conclusion that it's probably not the case. Especially that it was basically written by a single person in his spare time, Thomas Vitako, I hope I haven't butchered his name, a heavy metal musician. So not really an industry veteran by any definition of the word. And that's especially prominent when you're playing the game and try to do anything that's not the exact next step in the story that the creator planned for. You'll get a generic no reply of some sort stopping you in your tracks. So, Blackstar is linear to the extreme. If you don't play it in the exact way and order Thomas envisioned you would, you won't get far. And since the story is not really following a logic path, the game ends up being a clickfest where you try everything everywhere until you find that one thing that gets you a step ahead in the plot. Fortunately, the graphics and puzzles are actually pretty decent, so they kinda save Blackstar from being a trash not worth playing. But it's still not far off. All that said, I wouldn't recommend it to anyone other than the most hardcore fans of adventure games, cause controls are as finicky as the game design is, and will take a while getting used to. Yes, Blackstar managed to mess them up too. Cliff Danger is an always scrolling 2D run-and-gun platformer, and if you want to better understand it, think Just Jackrabbit but slower and with bigger sprites and more boobies, which obviously for the sake of this video and YouTube's algorithm will be limited. You're Cliff, the interstellar universal hero extraordinaire, so really the same person you are in real life. And one of those lazy space days when you're flying through the galaxy, as you do, you encounter an interstellar cry for help. Upon investigation, it seems that it's coming from the beautiful Amazon's Queen's ship. Her planet, Pleasure 6, awesome name I must add, has been invaded by the evil aliens known only as Glocks, and she pleads for help in saving her followers, so even more big-chested, lonely and captured Amazons. How could you say no to that? I mean, you cannot leave a lady in distress, much less so numerous ladies. So, you set off to save them from a world composed out of 20 rather large levels, and that's precisely what you'll do. Kick butts of various different alien scum, and be the knight in a shiny armor saving the beautiful ladies from captivity. Short of the armor and the knight part. Other than that, Cliff Danger is your typical action platformer with a lot of both action and platforming, and various kinds of weapon upgrades to boot. Graphics and sounds are really good. That said, the company that made the game and future Lula Sex Empire Management titles, despite renaming itself with nearly every single game they released, was well known for high quality presentation, so it shouldn't be a surprise really. And here they definitely delivered. Question is there anything other than boobies that make Cliff Danger stand out from a crowd of dozens if not hundreds of other platformers? Not really, but booba or not, it's a very competent and actually fun to play title that all fans of the genre should definitely check out. Brix is a top-down block-based puzzler, and the mechanics behind it are dead simple. There's a board and there are bricks on it. Each of the bricks has a shape drawn on top, and you must clear the board of all of them by sliding them so that the identical shaped bricks would touch. At least 2 of them, and when they do, they disappear. Now, you see where I'm going with this, right? You've seen it before. You may not be able to put the finger to where, but you've definitely seen it. And yes, you're right, you did. It's actually a carbon copy of a 1989's arcade classic, Puzznik, that saw releases to most systems under the sun in a 2-year window from its release in arcades. Anyway, some levels will feature 3 of each of the same marked blocks, and to remove them you have to make sure that they connect to each other at the same time, all within one move. Naturally, so that the game wouldn't be too easy, there are walls around the blocks preventing you from sliding them into each other willy-nilly, and there's an unforgiving timer that keeps ticking down no matter what. Even more so, most of the later levels only have a single correct solution, so you'll find yourself spending more time thinking and planning out moves rather than actually making them. If you're a fan of logic and puzzle games, Brix is definitely something that you'll enjoy, despite its challenging nature. But if you're not, then it won't change your mind about them and may even annoy you with its complexity. Bug Bomber is a pretty fun and unique take on the tried and tested Bomberman or Dynablaster formula. So if you like the two, you'll love Bug Bomber as well. It can be played by 1 to 4 players simultaneously and features 50 action-packed levels of exploding goodness. And believe it or not, it too, same as the originals, has a plot. You're assigned to squash the bugs plaguing the computer of some sorts, so you jump in, like literally in, and that's what you'll attempt to do, navigating its maze-like circuitry. There are a few changes to the original though. First of all, your task is to change the color of special blocks scattered around the levels and destroy the enemies later. So rather than just killing, you also need to do something useful, I wanna say, but in reality it seems like a busy work if I'm to be honest. Anyway, same as in original, you have bombs to dispose of the enemies, but that's not all. And you also get access to proximity mines, blockades and so-called hatchlings that track the enemies on the board and attack them when within reach. Sounds cool, right? Good. There are also pickups in the form of either letters EN that restore your energy and IQ that instantly make you smarter and able to complete any game anytime from now until forever. Or I'm lying and they increase the tracking ability of the hatchlings. One of the two, I'm sure you can work it out. Same as in Bomberman, Bug Bomber is a lot more fun when played with others and not alone, both in co-op and competitive mode. It is virtually endlessly playable with friends. Alone, I'd give Bug Bomber 30-ish levels before the staleness of doing the same all the time starts to creep in and you begin looking for another title to play. Bunny Brix is a new take on Arkanoid. It's more colorful, it has big sprites, it's overall more cartoony in its design, but in the same time, at least in my opinion, a bit confusing and less fun. I'll get to that in a bit though. Since it's chock full of color, it naturally also has to have a story. Your sweet fairy girlfriend has been kidnapped by the evil giant ape, and you, playing as Bunny, need to rescue her, getting through 30 rooms filled with bricks blocking the passage. Naturally, as in all Arkanoid-like games, you can't move to the next level before clearing the previous one first. So, since you've ventured onto the mission with your baseball bat, that's what you'll use to hit the ball against the bricks. And that's also what's most annoying about the game to me. I can never confidently say that I'm in full control of what I'm doing in Bunny Brix. Every hit, every move looks and feels clunky to me. I'm not having fun whatsoever. And judging by the scores it received online, which were not terrible mind you, but very aggressively average or just a smudge below average, Bunny Brix, it seems, was no one's cup of tea. Or a baseball glove. Whatever. Potato, potato, tomato, tomato, french fries, chips. Oh, it seems that we accidentally started a game of name 3 things spud related. Anyway, there are obviously power-ups in Bunny Brix, they're your typical slower ball, super baseball bat, shot, etc. You know, standard fare for the genre, and they obviously drop from destroyed bricks every now and then and keep the gameplay afloat for a bit longer. Even with them though, Bunny Brix is really not great, and having to actively press the button to hit the ball every single freaking time is beyond annoying. The only redeeming factor for the game, since the sounds are not fantastic either, are the graphics, which are cartoony and rather nice, even if nothing special for the year. All in all, Bunny Brix proves that some games should remain simple to keep their playability, that sometimes more is less, but most of all, that it's not worth to forcefully fix what's not broken. Iterate, sure, but do it smartly, choosing what to implement and what to ignore, and not just go willy-nilly adding everything that comes to mind to your game at first thought. I'm sure that if Bunny Brix was playtested by an external players as it was developed, we would have ended up with an entirely different product, possibly a decent one. I have mixed feelings about today's episode. On one hand, all games were interesting and worth mentioning for posterity if nothing else, but on another, quite a few of them were rather terrible. What do you think of them though? Are stinkers worth remembering too? Let me know in the comments below. If you liked the video, hit those like and subscribe buttons below. Smash them if you have to, it helps more than you could ever know. Also, I would like to thank you and all my amazing Patreon and YouTube members for helping this channel keep going. And last but definitely not least, I would like to thank all the wonderful folks who record and upload playthroughs, let's plays and other retro-centric videos here on YouTube, because they help to preserve the games that would have otherwise belonged forgotten. So thank you.